Now, to all the people who are sending me texts saying a Nobel Prize winner has said don't get vaccinated because everyone's going to die in 2 years from the vaccine. There's no hope. He'd never said that. Check it out. Hoax. Late this afternoon, a Senate inquiry handed down its findings of its investigation into the forced dismissal of Australia Post boss Christine Holgate. That was after she gave 4 executives $20,000 in watches to reward them for sealing a great deal with banks. It was worth $220 million to Australia Post. It was a deal that also saved a lot of post offices. But those watches just seemed too flash and too politically embarrassing for the Prime Minister, who said last year he wanted Holgate gone, even though the Australia Post board is supposed to act independent of government, and even though Holgate said everything she'd done was with the approval of her then chairman.
And if the Chief Executive wishes to stand aside, well, not wishes to stand aside, she's been instructed to stand aside, and if she doesn't wish to do that, Mr Speaker, she can go.
Now, the Senate inquiry, chaired by Green Senator Sarah Hanson-Young, so that's a little warning. The coalition members on this inquiry were outnumbered and gave their own report dissenting, has said that this process was unfair. The Prime Minister should apologise to Holgate, and current Australia Post chairman Lucio Di Bartolomeo should resign. I was joined a short while ago by One Nation leader Pauline Hanson, who called for this inquiry. Pauline Hanson, thank you so much for joining us. Now, you were a participating member of this Senate committee. You weren't actually responsible for these draft recommendations. You put in your own report. Let's get to that in a second. But in terms of what the majority of the committee found, for a start, that the chairman of Australia Post must resign. Are you happy with that recommendation?
That was pretty much top of my list, that he has to go. I don't think he's up to doing the job, and I've heard that from other people. He actually did give misleading information in the Senate estimates the end of last year, plus also his evidence that he gave, I question it. You know, I question over the timing of the phone call he's supposed to have with Christine Holgate to when an email was sent from her. So actually, I question his whole evidence, and yes, I believe he needs to go.
The inquiry has also found that Solicitor General should investigate if it was in fact legal for the Communications Minister, Paul Fletcher, to tell Australia Post to stand Christine Holgate aside. Are you happy with that recommendation? Do you think he might have broken the law?
Well, I think it needs to be investigated by all means. I think the way that it was handled last year, when it was raised, now the watches were given in 2018. Yet the way that the Prime Minister delivered his ground, you know, what he said on the floor of Parliament was as if it happened that week, that day, which I don't know if he really understood what was happening. And as I said to everyone, I think he actually spoke from the mouth before he engaged the brain of what he was actually delivering, what he was saying. And they didn't want this inquiry to go ahead. It was only because of me that I actually put it on the floor of Parliament to have the inquiry in the first place, because I believe that the way she was treated was appalling. And it shouldn't happen to anyone. I think she did an excellent job. She saved a lot of the LPOs from going under, that small mums and dad businesses. She saved a lot of the workers at Australia Post. So I think that needs a further investigation into it. Whether the government is going to take up these recommendations or not, who knows?
Now, like I said, I've been questioning you about the committee's findings, the recommendations, but you're putting in your own report. What else do you want?
Well, they did state in it that they want an apology from the Prime Minister, which I've put in also. The Prime Minister plus the shareholders owe Christine Holgate an apology. The way she was treated, she kept pleading for Simon Birmingham to get back to her, to speak to her, in which he said he would, and he never did. You have Paul Fletcher, you know, again, never listened to her. I think on evidence that was given, she was treated, like I said, very badly. It was her mental health she kept reaching out for some help, some assistance. No one gave that to her. There was no grounds for her to actually stand down. As far as I'm concerned, no grounds whatsoever when the previous chair actually endorsed and signed off on a card for those watches to be given. What I also believe is the board needs to be looked at. They are Liberal Party appointees, most of them. They are not totally independent. They're there at the behest of the government. I think there has to be total independence how it's run. Bartolomeo definitely has to go. I'd like to see MacGyver put in the interim to run the board until it's looked at more closely who should take up positions. And I'd like to, another thing too, which the committee has recommended, you need a full investigation into organisations such as Australia Post, NBN, on the remuneration packages that they give to their employees. I think it's over the top. That doesn't pass the pub test. Forget about the watches at $20,000. When someone is on just over $800,000 and they get $669,000 in incentive payments, that doesn't wash with me. Nothing, that doesn't wash. And then they're complaining about the $20,000 watches, but the week of the inquiry, they had what's called the ISAC Awards, which cost Australia Post $500,000. So, Andrew, it's a sham, it's a joke, and I think it needs to be a full investigation into it.
Pauline Hanson, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure, thank you.